Hi guys, and welcome to part 7 of the React Native Apartments.com clone series. Today we're going to be building out the sign-in screen, the forgot password screen, the create account screen, and the reset password screen. So without further ado, let's get started and building these screens out. Alright, so here I am in index.tsx back in my text editor. But the first thing that we want to do is create some new screens for sign in, sign up, forgot password, and reset password. So let's get started on doing that. So here I'll go to the screens and create a new file called sign in screen.tsx, and then we need to import screen from our components. And then let's import text from UIKitten at UIKitten. And then let's just export a new function here called sign-in screen. It's not going to take in any props, and it will just return a new screen with some text that says sign-in screen. Okay, so let's do the same for reset password, sign up screen, and forgot password screen. So the next one we'll do sign up screen. .tsx, and then we'll just copy this stuff and paste it over here, and then we'll change in to up. Next we'll do forgot password, password screen .tsx, paste that in. We'll say forgot password and forgot password. And then the next one is reset password. And this will be the last screen that we create for this video. .tsx. Just paste that in again and say reset password. Okay, so with those done, let's go to our types file down here. And here in our root stack param list, we want to add some properties which will represent the screens that we just created. So let's get to that. And the first one will be sign in, and it will be assigned undefined. Same thing for sign up. And then next will be forgot password. And then for the last one, reset password, it will take a token, which will be a string. Alright, so with those done, let's go to our index file and then import those different screens. So we'll import sign-in screen, import sign-up screen, import forgot password screen, and import reset password screen. And then here in our stack group within the root navigator, underneath this find location screen, we'll just copy this stuff and then paste it here. We'll get rid of find locations and then say sign in. And then we can just do the same thing for the other screens, changing the names and components. So here find locations will then be sign up screen, up screen. Next will be forgot password screen, password, and then last will be reset password. Alright, and then going back to our types, I forgot to add this to our props here for reset password. So I'm just going to add that in real quick. So this will actually take a root, and that root will be an object which has params as a property here, and then within that we'll have token, which will be a string. Okay. So now we should change our sign in and sign up buttons so that we can navigate to our sign in and sign up screens. So let's go to that component, sign in and sign up buttons. And let's import use navigation. And then create our navigation variable. And then here, we'll just say navigate to sign in. And then we can do the same thing here, just for sign up. And now let's go check that out on the app and make sure that we're actually having it work. Okay, and we just need to go to our account here, our account screen, and change that so that the user is not true anymore. So let's go there, change this to false, and then it will display the create account and sign in screen, or sign in buttons. And there we are at sign in screen. Go back, create account, sign up screen. And then here at the bottom we can just say, we can just add some buttons beneath our scroll view. And then we'll say on press equals navigation dot navigate to forgot password. And then we'll say forgot password. Then we can do the same for reset password. We'll just have to pass in a fake token. Reset password token be let me save that here. And then we'll say reset password, or yeah, reset password. And this is just to test it out, make sure that the routes are working. So we'll go to forgot password, okay, forgot password screen, and then reset password screen. So those are all working, they're routed up good. Now we just need to build out the UI and make them look pretty. And here back in our code, I'm actually just gonna get rid of this first forgot password button. Because we'll actually be creating a touchable opacity component to get to that screen. But here I'm going to leave this just for testing purposes. So one of the key things that we'll be adding to our sign in and sign up screens are buttons to log in with Google and Facebook. And to create those buttons, you have to get some type of Google vector or image for the logo. So I came to this website called svgrepo.com, and then they have both Facebook and Google SVGs, and then I just downloaded these. So let's download this, and with that SVG downloaded, you can then come to this site and open up that SVG in a text editor. So I'm going to do that. We'll just say vim.com. And then you can just copy this SVG and then go to this site, transform.tools, and just paste in that SVG code. And it will give you back a React Native component. So with that new SVG for Google, we can then go into our components here and create a new folder. We're going to call it logos. And then we'll create a new file called Google logo.tsx, and then we can paste that in. And this is a little different than this one just because I've done this before. so I wanted to be consistent with what I had done in the past. But that was just pretty much the process that I used for creating the Google logo component. And then we can do the same with Facebook logo. So go back and search for a Facebook logo. I think I chose this one in the past. And then go through the same process of downloading it and then putting it over here. And once you've got that converted, go back to your logos and components and create a new one called Facebook logo. And just paste in your code here. And then we can close out of these. And let's create the Facebook and Google buttons. So again, open up components and create a new component called Google button.tsx. And let's start off with our imports. First, importing style sheet, touchable opacity, and view style from React Native, text from UI Kitten, and we have to install Expo web browser, but import that as well, and then import Google logo. So go back into your terminal and then run expo install expo-web browser. I don't know, maybe it's already installed for you guys. I can't remember, but if it isn't installed, just go through this process. And I'm gonna cancel out because I've already got it installed. So clear, and we'll just exit out of this. And then next we want to say web browser dot maybe complete auth session. And this really doesn't pertain to this video, but in the next video this will be crucial. So I'm just adding it in here so we don't have to add it in the next video. And then let's create our component here. So export const Google button, and this is going to take in some props, and those are going to be text, style, and onPress. And text is going to be a string, style will be an optional view style, and then onPress is an optional void function. And underneath we can create our styles. Now within our component we want to return a touchable opacity, passing in styles.button and then style, and also onPress will be the passed in onPress function. And within that we'll have our Google logo, which will assign a style called styles.logo, and then text, which will have the style of styles.text, and then it will be displaying the passed in text. So let's create these styles here. And the first style is going to be styles.button. It will have a display of flex direction of row, a width of 100%, border radius of 5, a background color of white, and a height of 50. And then logo will have margin left of 10 and margin top of 1. And then text will have a color of 36454F, align self to center, a margin left of 40, font weight of bold, and then a font size of 15. So with our Google button created, let's create our Facebook button. And to start off with our imports, let's import style sheet, touchable opacity, and view style from React Native, and then web browser from Expo web browser, Facebook logo from Facebook logo, and then text from UI Kitten components. Let's move that up there. And then let's also call web browser dot maybe complete auth session. And then let's create our component here, and it's going to take in the same props as the last one. And let's create our styles below. And we will be returning the same stuff as the Google button, just with the Facebook logo this time and some different styles. So let's get to creating those styles. And those styles are going to be button, which will have display flex direction row, width of 100%, border radius of 5, background color of 3B5998, and a height of 50. Logo, which is margin left of 10, margin top of 1. And text, which will have a color of white, align self to center, margin left of 40, font weight of bold, and font size of 15. Now with those done, we can create another button called the Apple button. And for this, we need to go back into our terminal and install a package. So let's say expo install expo apple authentication. And with that package installed, let's get to our imports. So we'll say import platform, style sheet, and view style from React Native, and then import everything as Apple authentication from expo Apple authentication. And then create your component of Apple button, and we're going to take in some props, which will just be type and then onPress. And type can either be sign in or sign up, and onPress will be a void function, which is not going to be optional. And then just create your styles variable underneath. And then within this component, we'll say if the platform is not equal to iOS, we want to return null. And if Apple authentication that is available async is not true, then we would like to return null as well. Otherwise, we would like to return a component called Apple authentication.Apple authentication button. Its button type will depend on the type passed in. So if it equals sign in, then we need to say Apple authentication.Apple authentication button type.continue. Otherwise, we will say Apple authentication.Apple authentication button type.sign up. Its button style will be white. It will have a corner radius of 5, and then we'll assign it some styles called button. And button has a width of 100% and a height of 50. And onPress is going to be equal to our passed in onPress. And as a matter of fact, let's go back to our Facebook button and change this to non-optional. And do the same for Google button. And with that done, let's get started on creating our sign-in screen. So now let's navigate to our sign-in screen, both in the app and in our text editor. And let's start to build this thing out. So for this, there are going to be some packages that we need to install. So go back to your terminal, open up a new one, and then say yarn add or npm install react-native-keyboard-aware-scroll-view. What a mouthful. And then just add that package. And with that added, let's add 2 more packages called Formik and Yup. So we would like to import style sheet and touchable opacity from React Native, keyboard aware scroll view from React Native keyboard aware scroll view, text input and button from UI kitten, everything as Yup from Yup, Formik from Formik, and use navigation from React navigation. And then down below, we'd like to import screen, modal header, Google button, Facebook button, and Apple button. And then we need to create a component called PasswordInput, which we'll use on both the sign-in screen and the sign-up screen. So let's create that component real quickly. Let's go into components here, and we'll just say PasswordInput. So starting with our imports, let's import useState from React, input from UI kitten, material community icons, text style, touchable opacity, and style sheet from React Native, and Eva status from UI kitten. And then let's create the component here, and it's going to be taking in quite a bit of props, so let's create those here. The first one is going to be value, then style, onChange text, placeholder, which will default to your password, a label, which will be equal to password or default to password, on blur, caption, and then status. And value is going to be a string, style is an optional string, onChange text will be a function which takes in text and it returns void, placeholder, which will be a string, label, which is a string, and placeholder is optional, on blur, which will be an optional void function, caption, which will be an optional string, and status, which is an optional EVA status. Now underneath that, let's create our styles, and we'll have one style which is called iContainer, and it will just have a padding horizontal of 10. Now within this component, it will look like just a regular input, but on the right side of the component, we want to have an eye icon that the user could press to either show their password or to hide their password. So to do that, we'll first create a state variable called password hidden, and it will be a Boolean, and it will be initialized to true. Then we'll create a function underneath that called getIicon, and within that we'll say if the password is hidden, then we want to return a material community icon with the size of 24, a name of off outline, and a color of black. Otherwise, we'd just like to return a material community icon, which is just the eye outline. Color is going to be black and size will be 24 as well. And then underneath of this function, let's return an input. It will have a style equal to our passed in style, a value of value, which we're passing in, onChange text equal to our passed in onChange text, placeholder equal to placeholder, autocomplete equal to password, auto capitalize equal to none, label equal to label, secure text entry equal to password hidden, text content type equal to password, onBlur equal to onBlur, caption equal to caption, status equal to status. And then for our accessory right, we will be returning a touchable opacity with the style equal to our iContainer down below. And then for onPress, we'll say set password hidden to the opposite of our current password hidden state. And then within that, we'll call getIicon, and that will be the password input component. Now back to our sign-in screen, let's import password input. Then let's create our navigation variable. And let's create our styles below. Now we'd like to wrap our screen in the keyboard aware scroll view, and we'll set bounces equal to false. And the reason that I'm setting bounces equal to false is that I've noticed that on my iOS device, it's an iPhone XR, it seems to have some sort of glitch if I don't set this to false. So that's my reasoning behind setting it to false. Now let's add our style to our screen component here, and we're going to call it container, and it will have a margin horizontal of 10. So let's add that. And then we can get rid of this text here and display a modal header, and the text, I'm just going to set it equal to JP Apartments, but this could easily be apartments.com or whatever you want to name it. And I'm going to set X shown to true, and underneath of that we'll display some text. It will have the category of H5, and it will say sign in, and we'll create the styles right now. And those styles are going to be text aligned to center and margin vertical of 20. And then underneath of that text, we'll create a Formik component. And the initial values will have a property of email, which is just going to be an empty string, and then password, which will be an empty string as well. And then we'll create a validation schema. And within that, we'll say yup.object.shape. And then within the shape function, we'll pass in an object with email assigned to yup.string.email.required. And then for our caption, it will be your email is required. And then underneath of that, we'll have password, which is similar to the one above, just without email. And then the text is going to say a password is required. And beneath that, we'll have our onSubmit prop, which will just display our values to the console. Alright, now within our Formik component, we need to render out a function. And within this function, we'll be destructuring the following values, which are values, errors, touched, handle change, handle submit, and set field touched. And then here we just need to finish the other part of the function, and we will just be returning a component here. So here, let's return a fragment. And our first component within this fragment is going to be an input. and we'll set style equal to styles.input, value is equal to values.email, onChange will be equal to handle change, and then we'll pass in email. Placeholder will be your email address. Auto capitalize is equal to none. Keyboard type will be email-address. Text content type will be email address, which is camel case. Autocomplete will be email. Label will be email. On blur, we'll set the field touched to email. And for the caption, if the email is touched and there are errors associated with the email, then we want to display those errors, otherwise it will be undefined. The status will be dependent on the same thing as above, and if that's true, we'll say danger, otherwise it will be basic. And for the input style, let's create that. It will just have a margin top of 10. Now underneath this, we need to render out our password input component. We'll assign it a style of styles.input. Value is going to be equal to values.password. On change text, we'll just say handle change, passing in password. Placeholder will be your password. Label will be equal to password. On blur will be equal to set field touched, and then we'll pass in password. The caption will depend on if this password input is touched and there are errors associated with the password, and if there are, then we'll display those errors, otherwise it will be undefined. And then for the status, it's the same thing, and if there are errors and it's touched, it will be danger, otherwise it will be basic. Now underneath of this, we'll display a touchable opacity, which will display the forgot password text. The text will have a category of C1 and status of info, and the on-press event for the touchable opacity will just be navigating to the forgot password screen. And let's create these styles here. And for the forgot password container, the align items property will be flex end, and then margin top will be 5. Now underneath of that, let's create a button, and I'm going to add some space here. And that button is going to say sign in, and on press will just be our handle submit. The styles will be equal to sign in button, so let's create that, and that will just have a margin top of 20. Now underneath of this button, we need to create a component which will really just say or and have a line through it. So let's get to creating that. I'm going to call it or divider .tsx. And for our imports, let's import text and divider from UIKitten, and view, style sheet, and view style from React Native. And then create your component, and it will take in an optional style, which will be view style. And let's create our styles beneath. And within our component, we would like to return a view, and within that view, we'll return a divider and some text which says or. The appearance will be equal to hint, and another divider. So for our view container, we'll have a flex direction of row, align items to center, and justify content to center. Or text will have a padding horizontal of 10 and margin top of -5. And our divider will have a border width of 1 and a width of 45%, and a border color equal to our theme, which is D3, 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 so we can change that to theme color -gray. And also I noticed that we're displaying a row here, so we could get rid of our view here and just display a row. And get rid of this. And get rid of view here and import row. So with that done, let's go back to our sign-in screen and import or divider. And underneath our sign-in button, let's display our or divider, and we'll give it a style of or container. And or container just has a vertical margin of 30. And now beneath this, we want to display our buttons here. Our Apple button, Google button, and Facebook button. So here we'll display our Google button. The text will be continue with Google. Style will be go to styles.button. And then the on-press event will just log Google login to the console. And for button here, we'll just give it a margin bottom of 10. Now let's do the same thing for the Facebook button. Just passing in continue with Facebook and then logging Facebook login for the on-press event. And for our Apple button, we'll give it a type of sign in and then log Apple login to the console on on-press. So here we can actually test this out now. So let's just go with continue with Google, and I'm on the wrong one. So I press that, it'll say Google login, Facebook login. Here we can just say jp@c.com, and then here we can test out the password. We just say whatever, and there you go. And then if we go to sign in, then we'll say login, passing these values to the server. In the next few videos, we'll actually implement that logic, but for right now, this is good just building it out. So now with forgot password here, we can actually just start building out this screen as well. So let's get to that. So let's navigate there in our text editor, forgot password. And then here for our imports, we'll import style sheet from React Native, input button and text from UIKitten, everything is Yup from Yup, Formik, keyboard aware scroll view, use navigation from React Navigation, and use state. And we'll also import modal header. And let's create our styles down below. Then let's create our navigation variable, and then we'll also create a new state called email sent, and we will initialize it to false. Now with this, we'll do something very similar to the last screen. We'll just wrap it in a keyboard aware scroll view, setting bounces to false. And I suppose I should explain why we're using keyboard aware scroll view. And that's because if the input is halfway down the screen, the keyboard will actually cover up the input, and that's just not a very good user experience. So that's why we're using it. So with that done, let's create the styles for our screen and then the subsequent header that we're about to create. So container will have a margin horizontal of 10, and then header will have text aligned to center and margin vertical of 20. So here we'll say style equals styles dot container. Then we'll give it a modal header here, setting it to whatever you want here. And then we'll set X shown to true. And then here we'll do some conditional rendering. So we'll say email sent, question mark, else. Then we'll just want to display something there. Now, if the email was sent, then we would like to display some text. We'll give it a style of our header and a category of H5, and we'll say email was sent. And underneath of that, we'll display some text telling them to check their email. Now, if they haven't gotten to this point, they still need to input their email. And so let's create that portion of the screen. And for here, we'll create a text component. The category is going to be H5, style will be the header style. We'll just say forgot your password. And underneath that, we'll display some text telling them to enter their email. And then we'll create a format component. We'll set initial values to an object which has an email property, and that email property is an empty string. And then for our validation schema, it will just be the same as our email from the sign-in screen. For on submit, we'll just log the values to the console and then set email sent to true. And right now this doesn't need to be asynchronous, but in the future it will be asynchronous, just because we need to check with our server to make sure that the values they submitted actually exist. Now within this format component, we need to do what we did before, getting those destructured values. And those are going to be values, errors, touched, handle change, handle submit, is submitting, set field touched, and set field value. Now within this function, we would like to return an input. Well, we'd like to return a fragment, and then within that fragment, there's an input. The style is going to be equal to our input style, which we'll create. Value will be values.email. OnChange text will be handle change email. Placeholder, your email address. Keyboard type will be email-address. Auto capitalize equals none. Autocomplete email. Label email. On blur, set field touched to email. Caption will depend on if the email is touched and there are errors. If there are, we'll display the errors associated, otherwise it's undefined. And then same for status. If these are true, then we'll set it to danger, otherwise it's basic. And below that, we'll display a button. The on press will be handle submit, and we'll give it a style of sign in button, and it will say continue. And sign in button will have a margin top of 20, and input will have a margin top of 10. We should rename this to continue button, or rather just button. Let's test it out real quick. Say jp@c.com. All right, email was sent. So with those done, let's get started on creating the create account screen, or the sign up screen, whatever. Now as usual, let's start with our imports. So import style sheet, input button and text, everything is Yup, Formik, keyboard aware scroll view, modal header, Google button, Facebook button, Apple button, or divider, and password input. And we can actually go to our sign in screen and just copy these styles and go back to our sign up screen and paste them over here. Now let's just do the similar process of creating our keyboard aware scroll view. Set bounces to false. Wrap the screen in this. Assign the screen of style equal to styles.container. Show the modal header with X shown. The text beneath will say sign up, the category will be H5, and the style will be header. Beneath this we'll have our Formik component. Initial values will be first name, last name, email, and password. And then our validation schema will be similar in the shape. We'll just have different properties here. So for first name, we'll have a required string. Last name, same thing. Email will be the same as the sign-in screen and the forgot password screen. And then for our password, we are going to require it. It's going to be a string. And pretty much we're going to set it equal to a regex, which requires it to have 8 characters, 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, and 1 special character. And these are these special characters. And for on submit, we'll just log the values to the console. Next, let's return a function here. And then we will be destructuring values, errors, touched, handle change, handle submit, set field touched, and set field value. And within this, we will return a fragment. And the first component will be an input. The style will be equal to our input style. Value will be equal to values.firstname. OnChange text will be handle change first name. Placeholder will be your first name. Label will be first name. Autocomplete type is name. Text content type is given name. On blur will set field touch to first name. Caption will be if this input has been touched and there are errors associated with the first name, then we'll display the errors, otherwise it's undefined. And the same thing with the status. It'll just be danger if these apply, otherwise it'll be basic. Underneath of this, we can just pretty much copy and paste this below for another input, except that we need to change the values to last name, handle change to last name, your last name for the placeholder, label will be last name, the text content type will be family name, the autocomplete will be name, set field touch to last name, and then the same type of logic just with last name here for the caption and status. And then we can go back to our sign-in screen and copy what we have for our email input. Go back to sign up and paste that below. And navigate back to sign-in screen and do the same with password input. Now underneath of this, we'll have our button which says sign up, and the on press event will just be handle submit, and the style will be equal to sign in button. And I'm going to change that to say sign up button, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. We'll give it an OR divider underneath that button, which will have the style of OR container. Then we'll display our Google button, this time saying sign in with Google. It'll have the style of button, and then same thing, Google login, but this should say Google sign up. And go back to sign in screen, and let's just copy these as well. Except here we'll say sign up. With Facebook, and then this should say sign up. And then here, just Apple sign up and Facebook sign up. All right, so that's looking good now. Let's go to our console here and just say sign up with Google, sign up with Facebook, first name J, last name P, jp@c.com. We actually have to AB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, and let's try it if it. Okay, so our validation is working there, and we can see what our password is. So that's good. Now let's just like give it a star or something, and let's say sign up. And here we are on our console, and it's actually working, or it's saying register this object. So in the next video, we'll just have to pass this in to our server and have our server handle all of that stuff. So the sign up screen is working pretty well now. We just have one more screen to create, which is the register new password screen, or what did we call it? Reset password screen. So let's create this one out. And before we get started, let's navigate to that back in the app. So I put this on my account screen. Just go to reset password, and now we're on the reset password screen. And it's actually going to be really similar to what we have in our sign up screen. So let's just copy all this and paste it over. And let's save that. Alright, so right now we're actually on the reset password screen. I got a little error, which I had to reload my screen, but because we copied over sign up screen, just make sure to change the name back to reset password screen. So this all looks good. We want this stuff. Here we'll just say reset password. So password. Okay, let's get rid of first name, last name, and email. And then same thing here in our validation schema. In our onSubmit function here, let's just say console.log, send values to the server, and then we need to create our navigation variable and navigate to sign in. So let's import use navigation. And then create our variable here. So let's get rid of this input, the one below it, the email, and the password will stay. Let's change this to say reset password. And get rid of this OR divider and everything underneath it. Now we probably don't need some of these things. So OR container, do we need button? Probably not. sign up button. We can rename this to submit button. Forgot password container. Forgot password. Okay, that's only being used here. Input. That's being used, header and container, so that looks good for the styles here. Now underneath of this we want to create another input which just verifies that they typed in their password correctly. So we'll just have to create another value here, and then another validation schema and another input, and then the screen will be created. So let's do that. So for the value, we'll call it password repeat, and then for our validation schema, it's going to be equal to this, so it'll be a string. Then we'll say one of, passing in an array which references the password, and then null. And if that's the case, then we'll say passwords don't match, and this needs to be required. And then beneath this password input, you can just pretty much copy this and paste it below. You just need to change the value to password repeat, handle change to password repeat, placeholder to repeated password, label to repeat password, set field touch to password repeat, and then the touched and errors to password repeat, and same thing with status here. And that is pretty much what you will get. So let's test this one out. We'll just say hello world 1 2 star, hello world 1 2 3 star, and passwords don't match. Oh shoot, I think I added a 3. Okay, so let's see, or actually I really don't know. So let's change that to make it work. And there we go. Now if we click on reset password, let's go to our console and say reset password. It'll take us to our sign in, and then we can then sign in here, blah blah blah, hello world, and then eventually that will take the user to a logged in state of the app. And in case you were wondering, this is what it looks like on iOS with the Apple button down below for the sign in screen, and then sign up screen. This is what it looks like. For forgot password, this is what it looks like here. And then this is what the reset password looks like. So that is it, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode where we'll be implementing the functionality onto our backend for resetting passwords, signing up, and signing in. But other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.